Hey, Strong Girls. I'm Molly Herford, sports journalist, ultra runner, cyclist, and author, and founder of Strong Girl Publishing.
And I'm Dr. Sasha Golish, Executive Director of Yellow Running Shoes, a researcher, engineer, elite runner, and your BFF who's breaking down the science of smashing barriers in women's sports.
Think of us as the intersection of science and culture for women and girls in sport. Each week, we'll dissect the latest headlines and cutting-edge research on female athletes.
Debunk myths about girls in sport. Talk about how hormones affect performance at every age, to the latest research in sports science around mental performance, nutrition, equipment, and so much more.
And we'll spotlight badass girls and women who are rewriting the rules of the game, sometimes literally.
Expect it to be nerdy.
And occasionally TMI.
But it will always be honest.
Whether you're a strong girl yourself or you're raising one, this show is for you. Welcome to Strong Girl Talk,
where sports science meets sisterhood.
Here we go. Welcome back to Strong Girl Talk. I'm Molly Herford, joined by Dr. Sasha Golish. Sasha, how are you doing today?
We were just talking before we joined. I was like, well, my extrovert battery's a little bit low. I need to charge. I'm good. Otherwise, I'm good.
And you know what? I feel like this is like a very important thing that we talk about on here pretty often, but I admire the fact that you're really good at picking up on when your battery is low, because I feel like I only pick up on when my extrovert battery is done, when it's like I've shut off.
Okay, so maybe, and part of it was like, well, I have to ride my bike home, so I can't be like totally shut off, because like riding your bike home in Toronto like takes a lot of cognitive engagement to like make sure you don't get hit by a host of things. The one I'm the most afraid of is like people are out riding fat bikes with their batteries right now. They don't look around. If that thing hits me, anyways. So yes, I think that was part of it. I was like, well, I can't be completely shut down. I got to ride my bike home.
That is an excellent point. Side note, I was riding yesterday with my lovely husband and co-host of the Consummate Athlete podcast. We did our like annual mountain bike ride that we only do like one together a year, and that's really to avoid divorce mainly. It's good. It was good, but holy smokes, did I realize just how much brain power it takes to mountain bike. Like I always forget just how tired I am after, especially frankly when I'm riding with someone who is in fact a skills coach who like does that for a living and is like gently trying to help me. Like it's not a bad thing, but it is a tiring thing. So yeah, I was pretty cracked. I'm not gonna lie. I ate so much food after, which is going to really get into our conversation with today's guest, Stevie Lyn Smith, talking about her new book, Power Up. But yeah, I had to power way. Actually, all of this about the battery and stuff is very power up coded. And yes, I powered up in a big way yesterday after that ride. I was so wrecked. And that's something we talk about, the mental brain power. Like brain power does burn calories. Like those calories need to be replaced.
Well, and okay, so like conferencing, like it's not just like the cognitive engagement of like, oh, here's what you're talking about if you're presenting or whatever poster it is. For like, and we like, I'm not one of those people that like charges their battery socializing. I'm like, oh my gosh, I like we've talked about this, I'm so awkward. This will also make you laugh about mountain biking. So when I like first hurt my knee, people were like, oh, well, you can go mountain biking and stuff. I'm like, yeah, I can't really get into the flow state because I have to think so hard. So I can't like solve other things. And then the one time that I was like, oh, feel like Dee Dee Barry riding through the woods, I immediately rode into a tree. Like I was like, I am in fact not Dee Dee Barry.
Anyone who says riding mountain bikes for rehab has only ever ridden mountain bikes on like a rail trail that is just going straight and is flat.
Yeah.
Because mountain biking takes so much effort, so much power, and like frankly, the consequences are high. Like I would actually argue consequences on a road bike are higher from like a really bad crash situation. But if you're rehabbing something, your odds of crashing on the mountain bike, even if it's a minor crash, are much higher than on a road bike.
Probably 100%. They're at 100%. You won't crash.
Yeah, I have never done a mountain bike ride where I didn't at least just like tip over, which I did 3 times in like 2 minutes yesterday, by the way. Just all like right hand turns, just for some reason, were just wrecking me. It was, and I'd be stuck in the pedals and I'd be like, oh no.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Falling over. It was bad.
I rode my bike to the Culture ASICS event yesterday, and I actually happened to be on the route where all the runners were, which was great. And I stopped at this second one, and Charlotte Brooks was there with her baby. And I am notorious for standing beside my bike and tipping over, and she passed me her baby. And I was like, oh, I love holding Archie, but in no world do I feel secure that I'm not. And like, I would do everything to, anyways, I had a great teeny tiny little Archie snuggle, but I was like, please take your baby back because I do not want to hurt your baby. Yeah. Know your limits. Know your limits, ladies and gentlemen. I can fall over standing still.
You know what? Right there with you.
Yeah.
You know who does not fall over on their bike? Canadian Magdalene Valieres, who won world championships this weekend. Um, I'm very upset that I was not on my other podcast, the Queen Stage Women's Cycling Podcast. I was busy this weekend and I was like, oh, you guys know way more about these riders than I do. And like, you're in the road world more, blah, blah, blah. And then I like look at the results and I'm like, a Canadian one? Come on.
Yeah. And in style. So I didn't watch the whole race. I watched the end of the race when I got home from the conference on Saturday. It was a bike race. So your other podcast, The Queen Stage, other than the Consummate Athlete one,
Too many podcasts.
no,
But I
it's the
love it.
best.
It's the
Yeah, I
best.
was like, we love this. They were talking about how like those that we expected to win, like the Pauline Ferrand-Prévot's and the Demi Vollers, like basically were asleep, and we're like, well, there's no chance that like this group of it was two up the road, and then Valieres, Nev, Fisher Black, and Mavi Garcia, who finished second and third respectively, were sort of like in a pack behind the two, and then they caught them, and like with that cobbled hill as part of the finish, like if you weren't there at the bottom, there I don't think you had a chance. So, anyways, they slept, and that's what they said on the Queen Stage, right? Like they slept on it and didn't take them seriously. And also, like Mavi Garcia has been like, and Nev Fisher Black have been performing out of their shoes all year, and not like to say they aren't training. I'm like, well, any of them could have won.
No, like as you just said, like Mavi Garcia, I'm like, yeah, remember that time she soloed to the win of a
Right.
stage in the Tour de France Femmes like a month and a half ago?
Believe stage two. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's my thought process with a lot of that is worlds like the Olympics is very weird from a tactics standpoint because
Totally.
teams aren't racing together, but teammates are still kind of connected somewhat. Like if your teammate goes up the road, I think there's probably at least a little bit of mental math that you're doing when it comes to like, do I chase them down for my country or like, is that worth it?
Well, Allison Jackson and Magdalene are not just Canadian teammates, EF Education Oatly teammates.
Yep. And frankly, like there's a lot of riders where I think there is like a bit of like competition within their country, right? Like the
Yeah.
Dutch are never going to race together because they all could win.
Yeah.
So they are all racing for themselves. The usual heavy favorites, the Demi Vollerings, the Cassia Nui-Adomas, they don't have the backup that they have with their team. They don't have those team dynamics. So I think it does open it up for like a lot more riders to totally have a chance, which I think is why we get to see these like surprise finishes in whether it's the Olympics where Kristen Faulkner got the gold or this weekend. And that's not to like take down their performance in any way, shape, or
No,
form. You
not
have
at
to have a
all.
stunning day in order to make that work. But I think like that's the bit of like context that like people need to understand when they're like, well, where was Demi Vollering? Well, she didn't have her team riding for her. She didn't have like her usual protections.
Yeah. Well, and also just like for people who don't follow cycling and are new to the sport, they don't have race radios. So one of the other things in the professional pro women's peloton, like outside of world championships and Olympics, which I guess quotation marks are amateur events in a sense. Yeah, you don't get paid. So yeah, they are amateur events. Um, there's no race radios. And so you're like quite literally relying on like rider experience and rider tactics without having like information being fed to you from, team directors or whoever. You literally have the chalkboard from the motorcycles. So it's
Yeah.
different racing.
Yeah, which honestly, that even makes it more egregious if you knew Maddie Garcia had gone off the front and
Oh
she's not
yeah.
coming back. Like, how do you not look and be like, okay, I don't see her. This seems like it's a problem.
But if you were looking for her in the purple live colors, right? And not
Oh, oh,
right
they're
in her
excellent point.
yeah.
Yes.
because you're not racing in your regular team jerseys. And so like you're kind of used to seeing somebody in like this specific kit and all of a sudden she's in like the Spanish team kit, which I think was black, which just if you're going to race in Africa, maybe not the color of choice to give the athletes.
No, no,
White
very
seems
warm.
good.
Very warm,
Very
yes.
warm. Yeah.
Um, Side note, from everything I heard, everything I saw, the crowds in
Oh
Africa just,
my
oh,
gosh.
for anyone that poo-pooed the race being there, I understand where teams are whiny about stuff. I get it. Flip side, you were talking about on the Queen stage, Kimberly Coates, CEO of Team Africa Rising, was on. I think it's worth shouting out, like, the African riders have to go very far for every race. And I think like Worlds being there is actually brilliant because it really does force, everyone has to go, versus having any kind of like tour, UCI event, whatever, where teams can all kind of like collectively opt out. This you can't, and I think it really is a great thing for the country to or the continent to have. So I applaud it. I'm happy.
Oh, me too. And we talked about this last week during the ITT, right? Like just the representation of different African riders. On the junior side, an Ethiopian woman finished seventh. And like, if we know anything about endurance events, right? Like there are, genes that turn on in the African continent, sorry, content. Apparently I'm talking about a book. In the African continent, right? Where like there is a little bit of like genetics involved with endurance and sport that make them really good at it. And so for all of the Africans to like be able to see this and almost like, I mean, you've been to events, there's like a taste to it, right? Like, and for young boys and girls to like see this event, oh, it was just super special. When I was listening to the commentators and they said it was like they think it was the biggest crowd ever at a finish. Molly, it was
Wow.
so special to watch, like from TV. Like, fine, I wasn't there, but to see the crowd, to hear the African drums, to hear the people cheering, like it was so cool to watch.
I love that. So, and I think that really like puts a stamp on anyone that like suggested it shouldn't be there and was like, oh, no one's gonna be that, no one's gonna be around, the crowds won't be like American track and field, please take note.
Bring the drums! Bring
Bring
the
the drums.
cowbells! Yeah.
Bring the drums. Yeah.
I actually was joking. So I was at a conference last weekend, which we don't have to talk about, but I was the Minister of Sport, Minister Adam Van Koeverden, gave the opening remarks. He's like, that kind of fell flat. And I was like, is it inappropriate to think about bringing a cowbell to a conference and like cheering on when you really like someone? And he's like, gosh, if anyone can do it, it's you.
I would love that. I think academia needs more cowbell.
Oh gosh. Period. Let's not talk about
Period.
academia
Done. Yeah,
anymore.
good to go. Uh,
Um,
okay, do you want to mention rugby before we move on to the stuff we're grumpy about?
Okay, but there's also like the Canadian Women in Sport Get Girl Coached. And actually, this follows like great on the heels of the rugby championship. So 15s wrapped up this weekend, the women's 15s championship. Canada came out second. They went in ranked second. The final score was 13-33. Actually, talk about crowds. So they had the second highest attendance ever for a rugby match. They had almost 89,000 fans in the stadium.
Whew.
89. So so, okay, I'm claustrophobic and I'm more of an introvert. That to me sounds terrifying.
It's like a Taylor Swift conference, but yes,
Concert
sound
or
conference
conference?
con. So
More cowbell!
yeah, cowbells. It's funny. I said conference, kind of thinking towards this weekend or this Friday. The Life of a Showgirl drops, and they're doing like a release at theaters where they're showing it.
Oh, cool.
So because Peter loves Taylor Swift, I got him tickets. Um,
Oh, you're the
so
best.
in my head, for some reason, Taylor Swift, and then we were talking about conference, and then I'm like movie theater and concert. Like it all just kind of got bungled up
Yeah.
in my head here. Anyway.
But so like
Fair.
on the heels of that, Canadian Women in Sport announced Get Girl Coached. And so like a ton of their resources that sometimes sit behind a paywall are now available. So it's keepgirlsplaying.ca. We'll drop that in the show notes. So we're going to celebrate that positive aspect of sport. And then should I drop my grievance?
Drop the grievance. Let's go.
So on September 25th, FIS, the Fédération Internationale du Ski. So think everything in ski except biathlon. alpine, slope style, half pipe, Nordic combined, ski jumping, is also moving in the direction of sex testing and sex screening. And it's actually interesting. Um, so the president of FIS was also running to be IOC president. So like similar to Sebastian Coe. And I guess I just find it really curious. Is that the right word? That
Yeah,
these two male presidents who are running for the IOC presidency in their respective international federations have introduced sex screening.
that is interesting. And so is it the same, like, is it going to be the same kind of thing as the World Athletics is doing?
By the sounds of like the very brief press statement, yes. So to race in the women to participate, because some of them aren't races. When you're jumping off the ski jump, you are participating in a terrifying event. But to participate in the women's category, you have to have the absence of an SRY gene.
Okay.
So yeah.
And as we've talked about, we'll include a link to that episode in the show notes. It is more complicated than that. There's a lot of nuance that needs to be introduced as we talk about sex testing. Yeah, it's all very frustrating to see all of this stuff being brought to the forefront now, especially just where the world is at with regards to transhuman rights.
Well, just
So
hate.
yeah, exactly. Like I feel like you can't say that this is a non-political
Yeah.
decision or that like it's only based in science because we frankly know it's not. Like
No comment, because I'm like, I can't bias the like paper that I haven't released yet. But yeah, like we know it's not rooted in rigorous science, right? Like, and I think that's and it's rooted in poor science. I guess maybe I should like record an episode following the sex testing, sex screening panel that I'm doing at the Play the Game conference, right? Like, there's six of us on the panel. It'll be really interesting um, to see what others are presenting. Like, I'm super curious. So I'm presenting on sex variations, which is, different than transgender inclusion, but it's all about inclusion. But we had a meeting this morning, and one of the things we talked about is like, and I think we should actually do this at all conferences. Can you imagine like the moderator gets up and is like, "Hey, this is a room of respect and kindness. And any questions that you ask, we want curiosity, we want really good discourse, but we want you to ask these questions rooted in kindness and respect." I kind of got shut down and I was like, if I ever ran a conference, there's two things I would do. One, I would open every session like that. And two, one of my like pet peeves is like when people introduce me and I'm like, well, you kind of missed some stuff that I kind of wanted you to talk about. So if I would say when you get up there and you introduce someone, I want you to get up there and I want you to tell me one thing that you admire the most about them, and then
ooh.
let them introduce themselves. I'm like, that's somebody who's like, hey, I was feeling really nervous about this, but now I feel super confident and I'm ready to nail this.
Also number three, cowbells under every attendee's seat. But I think you're right. It's actually to me really almost shocking that we don't have that as like, well, I mean, I guess it's kind of appalling that we need to have that as like the starting point of like, hey, let's lead with humanity, kindness, genuine curiosity, no hatred, um, like, and just respectful language. Uh, it's sad to me that we need to include it, and it's sadder to me that people aren't including it.
Yeah, there's a whole lot there. Anyways, we're just gonna make the world a better place by acting from a place of like kindness and respect and filled with love and presenting good science. And when there's like questionable science presented, like again, it's not for us to like slam it, call it out, etc. But like, how do we have a conversation to say like, here's how you would make it better?
Absolutely. Yeah. Love it. Okay. Let's get into our conversation today. We talked to Stevie Lyn Smith, registered dietitian, author of the upcoming book, Power Up, A Young Woman's Guide to Winning with Sports Nutrition. I co-wrote this book, so I let Sasha take a bit of the lead on the interview, although I'm still very bad at I'm like a woman who has to lead when she's dancing with her husband kind of person, so I can't help
Yeah, but then he
myself.
doesn't step on your toes. So like, as you do.
Thank
Yeah.
you. But no, I love this chat. I love this book. I'm so proud of it. I think it's hopefully going to help like demystify nutrition basics so that young women in particular can actually make smart decisions based on an understanding of overall nutrition and then an understanding of sports nutrition. So yeah, I'm psyched about this conversation. Sasha, what was your take on the book and the convo?
Okay, I'm just gonna giggle and say this was not sponsored by chocolate milk. And when you listen to the episode, you'll totally understand why.
Can Big Dairy please sponsor us?
We love you, chocolate milk. We recommend that everybody drink it. Unless, of course, if you're a gluten intolerant, totally drink chocolate milk. But if you're lactose intolerant, just get the pills. Um, what was my number one takeaway was like actually it was a really good check-in for me to be like it reminded me like just do a better job with your nutrition because like you actually makes you sleep better, work out better, show up better, etc. Um, and it reopened my love of eggs. But I do eat one more because like I didn't realize that like there was it said two, I just have three, and then anyways, yeah.
I admit I just do 2 eggs, but I do a big handful of cheese on top of them.
Oh,
So it
fabulous.
bumps it up. So that's how I get mine. Okay, I'm lying. I put cheese on the eggs. I also put cheese on my potatoes. So I definitely get enough.
Well, and okay, and to the point exactly, like cheese gets a bad reputation. There is a ton of protein in it. I think I said on a previous episode with you, like one of my favorite things is moon cheese, so like dried cheese and almonds. So this like super salty snack because I can take it anywhere. And like I was surprised when I first read the packaging and like how much protein was in there. So like I celebrate your cheese eating.
Thank you. I celebrate it too. Makes
So does
breakfast
Stevie.
so good. So good. Okay, well, let's get into this conversation with Stevie Lyn Smith. Enjoy. Strong Girl Talk here with Strong Girl Publishing author, I was going to say soon to be author, but I think when your book is available for pre-order, you officially count as an author. So welcome, Stevie Lyn Smith, registered dietitian. We're so excited to have you on the podcast. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Okay, we have to just kind of start with the question of like it's less about nutrition and more just about you. How are you feeling? Book's coming out in like 6 weeks now. It's the countdown is on.
Countdown's on. It doesn't feel like real life. Even though like I have like physical, like have held it in my hands, I'm like, oh, this isn't real. I mean, I'm very excited, but I think like I'm like, oh wow, this is actually happening. I never thought this would be a thing, and here we are.
I love it. That's it,
Yeah.
don't worry, that feeling never really goes away. So,
Good to know.
Well, it also means that this is not going to be your only book, just so we're clear. Like I just feel like Molly just like teased up whatever comes out, which I'm sure you're like, no, just no, given where we're at in the process, I'm gonna need like a full-hearted break.
I don't know. Working with Molly was really, really great and just like made it not feel so daunting. So, and also remember my racing distance of choice was the full Ironman. So it takes a lot to scare me.
it's true. The beauty of endurance racing, and all of us, the three of us on this call, have this in common is like, yeah, once you've done, whether it's a marathon, Ironman, ultra, whatever, like once you've done that, yeah, the idea of sitting down at your computer and writing words, you're like, okay, this seems, I mean, it's a different kind of intimidating, but you know you can do the hard things.
Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of like like I tell people, well, like my just threshold is just a little bit different. After you swim 6 miles in open water, I'm out there kind of like in my head about a 1200 on the track. I'm like, wait a minute, you literally swam in open water for 3 hours straight. Like I think you can get through these 1200s, Stevie, right? So I just think about like the threshold is very different in my head sometimes. But again, Molly has been great to work with. So that definitely, I'm sure, made it a lot less daunting had I gone about a project like writing a book a different way.
Can we just pause for a moment here, like three strong women in the room? Because I'm like, I don't think, Stevie, for a second that like this would be the conversation if you were having if like Molly was Michael referred.
Yes. Co-sign that. Co-sign that.
Okay. Then I'm gonna like I love this first question. So like to be fair, Molly wrote this first question, but like you're about to release I'm going to call one of your babies into the world. I don't know what your future reproduction plans are. But
No, I call it a child. Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of emotion, a lot of care, getting to know you through this process. I know how much you've put into this, but like there's some nerves, I'm sure. Like, what's the scariest part about like putting out a nutrition book?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing, especially as we just kind of went through final edits, was like, and I'm always thinking about this when I'm speaking with clients or athletes or about food, bodies, exercise, is always like, I have this little low key anxiety about, okay, I know how this sounds in my head, but I want to make sure that at least I know it's not going to be 100% foolproof, but like that these words are going to be read, interpreted, taken the way I want them to be, that I know is going to be supportive for any, anyone I'm speaking to or any audience. And like that has been the biggest thing, is like going through and being like, okay, is this gonna land how I'm intending it to land? And really trying to look at it as the book many times in my head, just to make sure, again, like it's kind of like in any healthcare professional, my first thing is always do no harm, right? That code of ethics. So that I think is the biggest thing. I know there's going to be people who don't agree, people who are so deep in diet culture or so deep in their own issues, whether it's disordered eating, eating disorders, or just really negative thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors around food and exercise, that they might leave bad reviews. And after working and being in this space for as long as I have been, I at least know, like on a personal level, that that is often more of a reflection of where they're at on their journey. And that's not to shame people who are in that mindset, in that journey, in that struggle. It's just that they haven't seen the light or had the moment where they realize they need to take a step back and do some of that hard work around their thoughts, beliefs, behaviors around food and exercise, and not a reflection of me. So like that part scares me the less. It's just more of just being like making sure like that this messaging is gonna land how we all want it to land and intend it to land, more than anything else.
Well, so let's start there, right? Like, where and how do you want Power Up to land? Like, how do you envision it?
Oh man, I, I always just think back and I think about clients I work with, and I'm like, man, if they had something like this when they were growing up, where would we be now? Like, what different space would they be in now? What could be possible for them, like on a personal level, but also like a sport level as well. So I'm hoping that it's going to land in, these younger females' hands, and that they'll be excited about it, and they'll be like, okay, I have this really great resource and tool at my fingertips. Maybe they're not tackling every aspect of it all at once, but even if they can like glean like one or two positive changes or habits to actually implement into their life moving forward, like that to me is a huge win there.
I mean, amazing. I mean, Molly, I got to pass it to you for a second, right? Like, you are the founder and owner of Strong Girl Publishing, right? You want to uplift and amplify women's voices. You want to make the world a better space for female athletes. Tell me why this book is so important to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I'm so excited that I got to work on this book, that I get to help bring it to life. And a big part of that is because I know, and I know we've all seen firsthand that sport can do such amazing things for girls and young women. However, it can also have some really negative consequences for girls and young women if they don't have these tools that can help them, figure out how to fuel the sport that they're doing. Um, I think all of us can name, dozens, unfortunately, of athletes that we've known that have either ended up leaving the sport entirely or really struggling for, far too long because of whether it is true disordered eating, eating disorders, or just simply kind of accidentally ending up down the road of low energy availability, REDS, any of that kind of stuff. And, to if I'm going to try to be getting girls into sport, if I'm trying to get young women excited about sport, I also want to make sure that we're creating content that can help them navigate that sport in the healthiest way possible. Stevie and I have known each other for quite a while now. She's been my go-to dietitian for so like probably hundreds of articles at this point, dozens of podcasts, etc. And is someone I very much trust with this topic. So, it was one of those things where we were talking and I was like, if you ever want to write a book, maybe this is sort of where I would kind of like to see a book go. And, it all kind of came together wonderfully. And I could not have asked for a better person to write this book and kind of champion this cause. Because Stevie mentioned she does Ironman, but what she didn't mention is she also has a team sport background. So that was extremely helpful as someone who does not have a team sport background, who is like trying to encourage. I'm like, girls, play team sports. They're great. And I'm like, don't play team sports. They're terrible. I hate them. So having someone that comes from that background as well as an endurance background, I think was very, very important to this project because I'm like, I don't know what they do in soccer practice. So,
I mean, Molly, they kick a ball. Like, let's start there. They kick a ball.
how long, how much they're running during, I don't know. None of it makes sense.
So one of the things I loved, and I can see this in the two of you sort of talking right now, is the empowerment to the athletes of like, how do you then have conversations with coaches, right? Like Stevie, like you can see that like this book was written, for athletes, but like, listen, as a coach, it's a great resource. I'm just going to stand here and put you both on a pedestal and be like, hey, every coach, every administrator, everybody working with young women in sport, you need to read this book. And so, that advocacy piece that you offer in there and that advice, like I often find in coaching materials, like that's the piece that's missing. Athletes look at me and be like, yeah, but how do I actually do that? So talk us through some of that.
Yeah, so like when it comes to like how coaches can use this book, right? That's just kind of the angle.
And how do athletes advocate for themselves?
Okay. Yeah. So it's one of those things, especially I just think about just in general, something personally I've had to do a lot of work on is standing up for myself. Like a joke, but not really a joke, is that like I can be a little bit of a doormat. And I struggle with like anxiety about asking for help, in medical appointments, asking for like what I need from providers. So there is a whole section as to like how to ask questions and how to be kind of gentle but firm and being like, I don't understand this. Can you please explain to me what this means? And just little prompts in there as to, okay, maybe you don't know where to start. So here are the tools as to where to start and kind of ask for help and how to get that support and thinking about advocating for themselves as, a younger woman in kind of that medical side of things, but also like, how can you as an individual on a team sport show up and bring a better mindset, better energy to bring healthier interactions within the team, because growing up on team sports, that's a huge thing. As if there's one too few girls kind of in a negative headspace, a negative mindset, making some of these negative comments, having one or two girls who kind of know how to shift that talk, help with the culture on the team, can really make a big difference. It's kind of just like if you're in a work environment where there's like a couple bad eggs, and there's that research that if the overall attitude is bad, like then people start going down with the ship. It's the same thing here, as how they can kind of shift that conversation, even approach their coaches as to, okay, how can we start to address kind of like the culture of our team. And I know this is probably going to be like a never ending uphill battle across sports, but I am hopeful that there is more change since I was in team sports 20 years ago.
Don't worry, you're still young. Okay, just everybody who comes on this podcast, I'm like, don't worry, I'm older than all of you, so you can all still be young. So I just got back from Tokyo and it was like really cool. I got to hang out with Natasha Wodak, Canadian Olympic marathoner. And what you're just saying actually just resonates with something she was talking about. She's like, it's so like soul filling to go to the dining hall with all of your middle distance and long distance friends. And it's almost like a competition of like who can eat the most food, right? Which is not the norm in
Yeah.
middle and long distance running. And I was like, okay, so like getting more, like this book in more athletes' hands, like that's going to help change it. But you do a really good job from a strength-based perspective in the book about talking about some of the biggest mistakes that athletes make. And let's have a deep dive into those. I'm sure Molly's got a few she's going to add too.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, so many. And like when I think about these things, and I think about it in my adult clients as well, it's kind of like you don't know what you don't know. And like it's okay to make these mistakes. We've all made these mistakes. It happens all the time. And again, this is why part of why this book is being born. So hopefully there will be fewer of those knowledge deficit things happening, right? So there are certain mistakes where people are like, oh, I don't need to eat as much on my rest days because it's kind of that mindset of like less energy out, less energy in, which like when you say it like that, you're like, oh yeah, that seems logical. But when you think about it at a higher level and thinking about all of the demands, not just of sport, but also of like all of these athletes in this age range are still growing, and those demands and the demands of school, and people really discount and discredit how much like using your brain requires a lot of energy.
Oh
and
yeah.
that and then even just like the rest day thing in general, even for adult athletes, like you need energy and resources to recover and repair to see those training adaptations. So it's just kind of like, that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions there, or like the hunger cues. I'm always talking about this. Like, I've always kind of called it like business feeding. Like, if you're an athlete, you have to eat when you don't feel hunger, slash, also, okay, hunger doesn't always show up as just like a growling stomach. I even was talking to somebody, a 41-year-old man today about that this morning, that like hunger, like your stomach, you can be hungry and your stomach's not growling, especially if you're an athlete. So like that's still like just one of the biggest mistakes and common misconceptions, is that, oh well, if I'm not hungry, I don't need to eat, like I can skip that snack and I'm going to be okay. And that once or twice it happens, but over time, consistently done, kind of being in that mindset, um, either very quickly or over a long drawn out period, is gonna lead to some issues there with energy availability.
I'm gonna make Molly laugh right now, just with me being a super nerd, because like Molly loves my like super nerd things. So, chess, right? So very like mind intensive
Mhm.
game. Apparently, each chess match takes about 500 calories, right? Like if we put in perspective the cognitive demands for like students to understand, like, and I'll just be like, I understand. I am a math person, then math is not for everybody. That like the cognitive demands of studying. So you would have needed more calories, Stevie, to study for your math exam.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So, okay, I'm going to throw out one of my favorite ones to debug. So, in my running sphere, one of my favorite things is, oh yeah, I'm eating more protein. I put an avocado on my dinner. And like, again, I'm a nerd. So I'm like, well, avocados are super healthy. But just FYI, there's absolutely no protein in an avocado, but it's like full of great fats.
Well, great fats, fiber, potassium, love it,
Yeah,
but not a
here for an
protein.
avocado. Like, great. No protein. What?
But like, what are the other, like Molly, like, what are the other, some of the like funny ones that you've heard? Or like Stevie, like, you must get other ones like that in the office all the time.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, and I think the biggest problem and a big part of why we wanted to write this book specifically for young women athletes is there is a lot of information out there, and like when we're talking about mistakes, we're talking about mistakes that young women athletes make. And I think a lot of the information around diet and health and wellness right now is very much not tailored to a young woman athlete. It's tailored to
Someone on a GLP-1?
literally, I'm like, how do I phrase this? It's largely put out to women who are, in perimenopause, who have weight that they would like to lose. They have stubborn weight that is not coming off. Like that's who, you know, a lot of this stuff is coming out about, right? When we're talking about whether we're talking about like intermittent fasting or, any of these things, a lot of them are just straight up wrong, period. Like when we're talking about detoxes, like the less we say about detoxes, the better. We do address it in the book though, because that's one of the biggest, like, oh dear God, don't do this things. But I think a lot of stuff, even like the, super increase your protein and like don't worry about the carbs or like you don't need fat or any of this stuff like that maybe makes sense for a certain population does not make sense for young women athletes for many, many reasons. But it's very easy to get caught up in like, oh, this is coming out as like it's in women's health, so obviously this should apply to me. And it's like, okay, but you're 16 and going through puberty. And also, that's not even that accurate in the article, if we're being completely honest. Um, so, yeah, I think we wanted to really address a lot of the stuff that's like true of specifically young women athletes and not maybe for a different population. So, yes, there's going to be some, I feel like we're going to end up with some, yeah, 45-year-olds who read this and are like, wait a second, if I do this, I'm gonna like this is like the downstream effects are not gonna be good. And we're like, eat more carbs. And maybe that's not right for someone who's 55 and not training. But for someone
Hmm.
who's 17 and training 10 hours a week, it's very much the case.
100%. Yeah, I see this a lot with high schoolers is that, and I think it comes from a good place where like the parents are trying to put the child on whatever X, Y, or Z they're following. And that's where it can get really tricky when you're trying to help make meaningful change. And it just kind of becomes that extra layer, at least from my seat, which is why, like, yes, I work with high school and younger athletes, but it's not like the main bulk of my my population because of the parents. And it kind of comes from that struggle. And whenever I do work with these athletes and we're one-on-one and it's just us and they voice concerns, and I always just tell them, like, whether their parents are trying to have them like lean towards something that could be considered disordered, or their parents like follow the average American diet, standard American diet, don't have vegetables, right? They're like, how do I like find that halfway? And one of the biggest pieces of advice is that whether it's a parent or caretaker or whoever they're living with, is I always just encourage the athlete to say, like, have a conversation and lead in with like that you want and need and desire to make these changes for your overall health. Because like ideally a parent, caregiver, right? Health should be number one for the child, the teenager. So I always kind of try to hype them up to have that conversation, and give them tools where maybe we're leaning into frozen steam, veggies that we can steam, or microwave packets of rice, or instant rice, things that they can prepare on their own, so they're not asking the individual to do extra work. And we do have some nice, easy, fun recipes and tips in the book too.
Okay,
Yes.
so like for the person who like hates rice as a carbohydrate, I was like, you are killing me. Anyway, and I just came back from Japan. Fine. Listen, I'm not normal. I
More for me.
love that you love rice. Okay, but let's talk about carbs, right? Like I'm literally in my driveway yesterday talking with my neighbor. She's like, "Yeah, I go to workouts and I just don't feel like I have enough energy. Like, do I need more carbohydrates?" And I'm like, "Well, tell me what's in your smoothie." I was like, "Well, it's full of vegetables, which is carbohydrate." I was like, "Are you sleeping?" She's like, "No." I'm like, "Well, there's no amount of carbohydrates that's going to help you at your workout early in the morning." But let's talk about carbohydrates. Like, I grew up in an era of like white bread is a bad carbohydrate. White rice is a bad carbohydrate. Like you do a great job of debunking that myth. Tell us more.
Yeah, we love carbs, obviously. I wish I had my Queen of Carbs shirt on right now, but I don't. Um, but yeah, very common misconception. Everybody, literally 99.9% of people who walk into my office online to work with me are not eating enough carbohydrates. And again, it's more of a you don't know what you don't know, because people think they're doing enough. They're like, well, I have a carb at each meal. But when you like sit down and kind of lay out numbers, they're like, oh, wow, like that's a lot of carbohydrates. And it's just because I feel like in society as a whole, carbs are bad, carbs are feared, yada, 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 that most people in general probably aren't eating enough. Athletes are going to need even more carbs than they think they need. And just, I think, I'm thinking about, I grew up in the 100-calorie snack pack era.
Oh,
Do you remember those? And
oh yeah.
it's just
No,
like, oh, you don't remember those?
no. Tell us more.
Oh,
Molly knows.
I'm like triggered just hearing it. Yeah. Oh my gosh, huge. Like in probably our teen years would be my guess around when they
Yep.
started coming out, where it was just like everything came in 100 calorie like snack packs, and some of it would be like no fat, low fat kind of stuff, but it was also just like be like sun chips, 100 calorie pack, and it was just
Or
atrocious.
chips.
Yeah.
And the Oreos weren't even actually Oreos. They were just like the cookie, but like in the tiniest little
Oh,
things
I
with like white specks on
forgot.
them.
Oh, the worst. Yeah, those were disgusting. Yeah, boo. Thumbs down. Weight Watchers was also huge at that time. Like they had Weight
Yes.
Watchers ice cream sandwiches. I remember my mom always had in the house. And like they came, I feel bad. I must have like economically ruined my family with this because like those things were like $7 for like six of them back in like the early aughts. And like I would eat like four of the six.
Well, you had to because there's only
Yeah.
100 calories in your snack, and like
Yeah, they were
that's
terrible, but I
Stevie
would eat
just
four
said,
of them.
not enough carbohydrates, right? Okay, so like building on that, like we've not done a great job at like helping athletes to eat enough carbohydrates, but I'd say the same thing about fats too, Stevie. Like I grew up,
Mhm.
like I'm a little bit before your time, where like I grew up in big dairy, where it was like dairy is the best, right? And but it was interesting because it was like non-fat milk, skim milk,
Hmm.
and you didn't eat olive oil, but like so just I maple syrup and olive oil, drink them out of the bottle.
Hmm. Oh
So
yeah.
talk to us about
Low fat yogurt, no fat yogurt. Literally, the first words I remember reading were fat free on a salad dressing label when my mom took me grocery shopping as like a 2 year old. This is my first memory that I have.
I don't remember the first words I read, so that's impressive.
yeah, a two. I definitely wasn't reading it too, just so we're clear.
Right? It's like I don't even think I was speaking it too. I had to go to speech language pathology just because I couldn't say my S's, believe it or not.
Oh, I
Anyways,
still can't say my S's. So,
I digress. Yeah, when you brought up fat, all I could think of were remember those awful potato chips that had like olestra in
Yes,
them
with
and people would shit their pants.
yeah, it had another warning on the bag, right? Like may cause anal leakage.
yeah,
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is the
people.
era.
Yeah, this is the era, but yes, of course, fat's also very important for a number of functions in our body, but especially when we're thinking about, younger female athletes and the high energy demands. I never like to glorify one macronutrient over the other. They're all very important in their own respective ways. I like to think of like harmony, but fat is definitely a big one that I've seen restricted. It's definitely changed over the last few years where people are a little less afraid of it. But to me, like I see it as a huge tool for athletes to help us like thinking about, okay, we have to eat more to meet our energy needs, but like sometimes you can only get so much volume in. So it's an easy way to get more bang for your buck. Like I drink whole milk, full fat Greek yogurt. People are very afraid of it. So I'm like, start with 1%, start with 2%. I was like, first of all, too, kind of going to like one of my philosophies of like food is also supposed to be enjoyable, and like that's going to help like the texture, the mouth feel, just like how things taste. You're going to feel more satisfied, right? So like knowing that like yeah, we need to get enough energy, we need to get enough fat, carbs, protein, micronutrients, but also we should be satiated, we should enjoy things. Like a lot of times I get disenchanted with eating and big training blocks, but like you shouldn't be having sad salads, as we mentioned in the book, or like eating very sad 0% yogurt, like just trying different things and being like, oh, wait, this actually does taste better. And I feel more satisfied after my meals. And like kind of noticing some of those other things that happen, that feedback when we're eating, increasing our carbs or eating a little bit more fat.
Well, then, like, this is a perfect segue when you talk about like the three things working together in harmony. Like, we're gonna talk about chocolate milk, right? Like you're wearing a chocolate milk shirt. We all love it, right? But again, like the chocolate milk gets this. So I often get like, from my coaching perspective, parents who are like, "Well, I don't want my kids to drink chocolate milk for breakfast." I'm like, "Why? They'll eat breakfast. Like, what battle are you trying to pick? I'm like, oh, they get some carbohydrates because there's a little bit of extra sugar in the chocolate for the chocolate milk. Um, I am a fan of 2% chocolate milk, mostly because anything above that in my stomach tends to make atrocious farts, which is just like obnoxious in public. Um,
it happens.
it happens, but then and the protein, right? So like to me, chocolate milk is just this like, it's perfection.
Oh yeah, I mean, we know how I feel about chocolate milk. It's also 90% water. Um, so like we're thinking about rehydrating, right? It also, besides like having a lot of great macronutrients, it also has a lot of our essential micronutrients. We're thinking like zinc, selenium, magnesium, potassium, vitamin D, B12, right? Like it's a very complete beverage overall, especially again, thinking about the athlete picture. We're thinking about it like post workout, you have a nice ratio of carbs to protein to help, replenish glycogen, replenish those carbohydrate stores, repair the muscles with some of that protein, and you're rehydrating all in one. It's also very accessible. You can go to any gas station and find some sort of chocolate milk. It's easy to get. Schools have it all the time, whether you're on a college campus or at a high school, you can always find it. It's not like some bougie shake that's got like 40 grams of protein that you don't need, no carbohydrates, all of this extra stuff that's like $7 a bottle. Chocolate milk is quite affordable. You can pair it with a banana or like a granola bar to get a little bit more carbohydrate if you need a little bit more for recovery or even for breakfast, right? Like you said, you're going to get all the things. So,
Okay,
Yeah.
so then we're shifting to a drink that makes me crazy. Okay, we're gonna shift to one that makes me crazy. Electrolytes. Electrolytes make me crazy. Okay, my sister. So at dinner the other night, my sister was like, "I need an electrolyte drink. What do you suggest?" I was like, "A slice of cucumber." So
some salt on it.
Oh my gosh. I can't stand, like, we'll just get all our electrolyte gripes out of the way. I get so mad when podcasters now, because everyone is sponsored by an electrolyte company. And
Mm-hmm.
so many podcasters who aren't in sport will just be like, I take my electrolytes every day as though it's like a multivitamin or something. They're like, oh yeah, like I definitely like need to like get more salt. Like just the phrase of taking your electrolytes as
Mm-hmm.
though it's like vitamin D or something is just like beyond frustrating to me. So, also they're like $1 billion. Sorry. Again,
and
like
crappy, right? Like they're very expensive. So people are making a
Yeah.
fortune off this, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
Christy Ashwandon talked about like the actual chemical makeup of many of these electrolyte companies, particularly in the US, which trickle up to Canada, and just like quite literally, like it's trash garbage. It's my
Mm-hmm.
favorite word to get both American and yeah,
Hot trash garbage.
hot trash garbage.
I like that. Yeah. So as you said, we can get electrolytes, through our usual intake for, included in the cost of the food that you're already buying. Um, but it's funny because I have been doing a lot of fueling plans this summer, obviously, with a lot of people racing, and people are like, I have such bad GI issues. I can't. They're just chugging electrolytes.
Right.
And I'm like, well, you don't need 2000 mil. I mean, I had one client this summer. I have consent to share this. His sweat test was like 7,000 milligrams per hour. And I was like, bro, I should have charged you double. He's my friend. I was like, this is insane. But you know what? He was a good student. He stuck to the plan and he survived 107-degree, 70.3 and got through it and finished when people were dropping like flies. And I was like, I'm so proud of you. I digress. Most people, our losses are not that high.
Yeah, he's the standard deviation, but like nine, like
But I will say, like, so many people come to me and they're like, I have all these GI issues. And I'm like, oh, well, like, you're taking in 2,000 milligrams of sodium an hour. You're chugging an LMNT before two, and then like two more later in the day. I was like, more, it's just kind of that concept too, where a lot of people just think like, oh, this person said this is good. I need these, more is better. Which is like, again, and that's not to blame people because of all the messaging is out there and the layperson doesn't know what like all of us in this room know, or people who are in the field know. So it's just kind of like, oh, this is how I need to get it because like this influencer or this podcaster said this is what I need. And they don't realize that there are alternate options, or like taking in too many is also not a good thing and is probably leading to a lot of their issues.
Well, and like your comment about chocolate milk, like it's not affordable, right? Like, and they come in plastic tubes and aren't sustainable. Like there's a whole bunch of challenges with electrolytes. I mean, I personally can't digest any of the extracts, like the stevia leaf extract and the monk fruit extract. So when you're talking about those people like in taking that stuff, I'm like, yeah, maybe you just have the same stomach issue I have.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people really do not tolerate those artificial sweeteners well. And, and then if you're having 2, 3, 4 packets of them a day, and then all of the other foods, and we talk about this in the book, all the other foods that these artificial sweeteners are showing up in, like oftentimes that can just be too much. It's kind of like the dose, as we say, it's not like you have to be afraid of them or completely avoid them unless you have issues with them, then please do, because you're going to be more comfortable and feel better. But they just sneak into more and more things. And I think it just creates a lot of issues. And it just goes back to like nutrition being simple but complicated. But most people are overcomplicating it for themselves. And it just, again, goes back to the larger problem of, oh my God, you open Instagram and, what else are you supposed to think or believe? So I'll get off my soapbox here. I was gonna roll for hours.
We're big on the soapbox here.
Keep going on the soapbox. So then, like, let's wrap it up with like, then what is your like top advice, top 3, top 5 to like young women in this athletic space?
Oh man. Don't be afraid of your body changing, because it's going to change and it should change. It should be different through the years, especially like during this time frame that we're talking about. I think that's something that's important for young women to hear other women talk about and know that like it's okay and it's normal for your body to change. And then of course, even as we get older too, that our body's going to change throughout our life, and to not work so hard against it. 2, there's so many nuggets of wisdom. Please eat more carbs. You're probably not eating enough overall, but probably not enough carbs just from my experience. And 3, just kind of more philosophical, I guess, is sport and all of this is here to add to our lives. And I know if you've like committed to a team sport or a solo sport, like you want to show up and do your best that you can do each day, day in and day out. And if we can kind of see nutrition and food as a tool to help us keep growing in our sport and in life, and to be a tool to help us show up as our best selves and like put in the work. Because like I know all of us here are athletes and we love to like put our head down and do the work. And you're going to be so much happier and feel so much better if you are kind of looking at food as like, I can enjoy this. I want to use this as a way so I can show up my best, on the playing field, in my sneakers, etc.
Also, no sad salads.
No sad salads. TM, trademark, TM. Molly's going to file a patent for that, a trademark, whatever.
Yep.
A patent? I was like, what?
Yeah, the no sad salad patent. It's great. Yeah. Okay, before we wrap up here, Stevie, let everyone know where they can find you. Obviously, we will include links to pre-order Power Up in the show notes, but where can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more?
Yeah, you can find me on my corner of the internet. My Instagram handle is @StevieLynLyn, and that's STEVIELYN. I hope you like my dog. And you can find my website at stevielynrd.com.
Perfect. Also, if you don't like dogs, you really shouldn't follow literally any of us on any platform. Sorry.
Yeah.
Awesome. Stevie, thank you so much. This was, of course, so much fun. And I'm so excited for where Power Up takes us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Strong Girl Talk podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, definitely head over to wherever you listen to podcasts and rate, review, and of course, subscribe so you never miss another episode. And head over to stronggirlpublishing.com to check out all of the books by Strong Girl Publishing's authors, including Molly Herford, Misha Powell, and so many more. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.